This is Vigilant Liberty Radio News from Independent Journal Review for December 15th. The Ready for Hillary Super PAC, or Political Action Committee, formed for Clinton's presumed 2016 run for the White House, is already in debt. It raised more than $11 million in a year, but most of those funds were spent during the 2014 midterm elections. A Federal Election Commission disclosure shows the PAC has less than $900,000 in the bank and still owed on a $1 million loan. The loan was taken out in October. The PAC also spent $1.8 million between September and November, having only raised $900,000 during that same time period. A soldier on leave for the holidays has been told by his wife's landlord that he has overstayed his welcome and cannot visit the apartment his wife lives in with their newborn daughter. Sergeant William Bolt is stationed in Missouri, and his wife is a student at Clemson University in South Carolina. When Bolt came to visit his wife and child, the landlord said he could not stay because it would violate the terms of her lease. Arguing that because Bolt's name is not on the lease, he cannot stay for longer than 7 days, the landlord says he enforces this rule for all tenants and would give no special consideration in this case. The landlord has also allegedly said he would have Bolt arrested or double his wife's rent if he continues to stay at the apartment. A local attorney was shown the lease and said it was vaguely written and the charges would have a hard time standing up in court because the visiting person is a spouse. A UCLA law professor has issued an apology after coming under fire for a Ferguson-related exam question. Professor Robert Goldstein wrote in a question that cited reports Michael Brown's stepfather, Louis Head, yelled, quote, "Burn this expletive down," after the grand jury announcement, and asked students to write a memo giving their advice to a prosecutor on whether or not to seek an indictment against Head. The question was called racially insensitive and divisive, and Goldstein said he will not grade that portion of the exam. A law professor at George Mason University, David Bernstein, said there was no reason to apologize, and that if students are, quote, "such delicate flowers merely being asked to assess whether a certain controversial speech that's been in the news is constitutionally protected, then maybe they should find another profession." And breaking news out of Australia. At least 13 people are being held hostage by at least one gunman at a cafe in Sydney. As of press time, no hostages have been released. Reports indicate there may be multiple gunmen and as many as 40 to 50 people in the cafe. Images from news outlets show two women forced to hold an Islamic flag in the cafe window. While it is not the same as the ISIS flag, the black banner bears a similar resemblance. Traffic has been diverted in Sydney and numerous buildings have been evacuated. This includes the famous Opera House, which was evacuated when, reports say, a man walked in this morning carrying a mystery package. The State Library and Parliamentary Executive Offices have also been evacuated. Law enforcement is working with local authorities to figure out a motive behind the attack and respond to the situation. This has been Amy Curtis with your Vigilant Liberty Radio News from Independent Journal Review for December 15th.
DLR.
This show is produced by IJReview.com.
This show is copyright by VLR Media. All opinions of panelists and guests are their own and may not reflect the opinion of VLR Media, the host, or anyone else.
Now let's be clear. Now let's be clear. There are no winners here. Now let's be clear. Now let's be clear. Now let's be clear.
Happy Monday, America. It is a great day. Great day, particularly if your favorite NFL team clinched its division yesterday. Although, I suppose not so much if your favorite NFL team was knocked out of the playoffs. We may have to talk about that for a second. And as most of you probably know, I don't know if we'll have time to talk about this. It's a breaking story, but just muse a bit about what would happen if it happened here. But hostage siege over in Sydney. Police, whomever, stormed the building. At last report, I think a couple of hostages killed, the gunman as well. But the question is, and maybe we'll get to this in the last half hour, that could happen anywhere. And how would we react here in a U.S. city? Great show today. Andrew Klavan. Any of you who have followed all this kind of stuff that Hausum and I do have to know who Klavan is. Author, playwright, political pundit. This guy is brilliant, humorously simple in videos. He posted videos on Truth Revolt. It's going to be a great interview. It's going to be in about 15 minutes. We have Town Hall Finance Editor Michael Schaus at the bottom of the hour. A busy show. Fasten the seatbelts. How you doing today, man?
Dude, I'm freezing my rear end off. It was in the 40s here this morning. I'm actually thinking of needing to turn the heater on or even put a sweatshirt on. I'm dying.
I think you ought to do that and throw on the Uggs as well. Hey, listen, pimp us in, man.
Yeah, if you'd like to call in after Andrew calls in, the number is 412-567-6879. You can get all the updated information, streaming, subscriptions, all of our various multimedia, social media links at therightmics.us and on Twitter at therightmics. So yesterday, that was a big deal in Australia, man.
Man, it's just, and again, the scary part is, I mean, that could happen anywhere. We don't need planes flying into buildings or suicide bombers. We just need a nut job, as the Islamic extremists, and we call them lone wolves, could walk into any Starbucks in America. You don't even need to shoot up a mall, and that kind of thing could happen here. And as you and I know, I mean, copycat killers from serial murderers to this kind of stuff, this just kind of raises, I think it should raise a bit of concern across this country as well, man.
Yeah, the lone wolf thing is particularly galling for me because, unless a guy has a certified membership card to the Muslim extremists and he's got verification that he's paid his dues in full and a group photo and, a passport stamped back and forth to all the various hellholes in the world, and maybe a Twitter feed with constant shout-outs from 140 other wacko extremist Islamists who want to kill us. If he doesn't have all of those things in a binder producible at an instant as they're going through his dead carcass, then they just identify him as, he's totally on his own. The first thing this doesn't have anything to do with is any sort of religious affiliation. God,
exactly. And you're exactly right. And that's how they talk, unless it's certifiable. I mean, everything that you just said, if you're listening to the liberal media, you're watching MSNBC, CNN, whatever have you, let's don't put it on Islamic extremism. That's exactly what it was. This guy could have never, listen, this guy could have been the Lee Harvey Oswald of communism. Okay, I'm going way back with an obscure analogy. But the Russians thought he was nuts. You could have some Barney Fife Islamist wannabe here who ISIS would have nothing to do with, yet if he goes in and shoots up a Starbucks or whatever, everybody's still dead, and he was motivated by Islamic extremists. So this is a scary thing, I think.
Yeah, what would it take? It's almost like there's just an automatic knee-jerk reaction. Well, it doesn't have anything to do with his peaceful faith. It doesn't have any, right. If this guy had walked across the street from a conservative Tea Party type meeting 14 years ago, that would already be a 7-hour MSNBC special for this weekend. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I know exactly what you're saying. And, if if a guy walked into a Starbucks in Philadelphia and this kind of thing happened, and after he was killed, if they happened to find a church program from 3 months ago that he went to, the Uptown Baptist Church or whatever, this guy would be, we know what would happen. He would be a religious Christian extremist.
Yeah, the last night when the thing was going yesterday afternoon, the Twitter about the commentators and the newscasting was just unbelievably mocking at how it's everything they could possibly do to deny. It's like, well, does that little flag that those women are holding up at the window that appears to be in Arabic writing, does that say, Allah is a just and fair, and it's just
they rush to defend and to pretend until it's incontrefutable that it's not such. Listen, I was writing this morning, and I had Fox on in the other room, and you kind of pay attention, and you're writing as well, and then all of a sudden I heard all hell break loose, and it was the video was literally minutes old, and Fox was doing a live feed. But the explosions and the amount of gunfire and so forth. So I went in, and obviously, and I watched it. I've seen it several times. All hell broke loose, and it's very dramatic. I'm sure someone, as we speak, if not, will beat us since we're on the show. Very dramatic video of the the special forces or whatever, police ushering out these terrified hostages running with their hands in the air and so forth. It gave me pause to say to myself, I wonder, back to that situation in Philadelphia, New York, wherever it might happen, what would happen here? How would we react? And maybe the larger question, maybe we talk about this later, is then the second guessing on the left would begin if this thing did not go perfectly and no hostages were killed, and 2 were killed.
Yeah, I found, and I couldn't find it, but going through my Twitter feed, there was some newspaper that was commenting that everybody needs to just stop for a minute and try to understand where this guy was coming from. I mean, what are the social conditions? What are the cultural conditions that caused him to bring him to this particular point in his life? And can we not, as a society, learn from that?
Are you being serious? Did you really?
Oh, I wish I was not being serious.
And yet neither of us are surprised.
Oh, no, not a surprise at all. Probably the most entertaining things that I saw on Twitter were either conjectures as to what would have happened had this been in a concealed carry state.
You can't make it up. You cannot make it up.
No, I mean, and that's another that raises a legitimate point. I mean, this is the kind of thing that the crazy, wacko, extremist nutsos imply when they say, you know what, I would like to be able to carry a weapon, just in case.
Yeah. What's going to be interesting, here in this country, let alone Australia, because the thing is still kind of breaking in terms of, it's over. He's dead. 2 hostages are dead. But just the second guessing and listening to, we used to call them the loyal opposition in this country. I'm not so sure that that's the proper term anymore. But all the commentary that we're going to hear from the left.
Right. All right. You know what, Michael? We need to break off because we've got Andrew Klavan on the line, and he has graciously agreed to give us a small amount of time. And folks, unfortunately, with only the 15 minutes or so we have with Andrew, I cannot go through his bio. Because it'll take that long. But award-winning author, screenwriter, media commentator, he makes his own videos. Also, Clint Eastwood and Michael Douglas have starred in movies from best-selling novels that he has written. I have had the personal fortune of running into Andrew a handful of times out here in Los Angeles. So not only can I say that he is professionally a total rock star, personally, he is a super gracious and very cool cat. Andrew Klavan, welcome to the Right Mics.
Hey, thank you very much. That was a lovely introduction, all lies, but I appreciate it all the same.
Welcome, Andrew.
If it's lies, man, somebody is doing one hell of a job on your website writing stuff about you.
That's it. It's all. I'm not even real. I'm just a make-believe figure at this point.
I'll tell you what, the dude that plays you in those videos looks just like you, and he's awesome at least.
That's amazing, isn't it? He's almost my spitting image. That's true.
It is an uncanny resemblance. Good for central casting to come up with the guy. Like that. Hey, so as I had 127 different things I wanted to talk to you about, Andrew, the thing that frankly jumps out the most, obviously, is the Gosnell movie, which it was announced a couple of months ago that you are writing. Why don't you give folks a quick update as to what's